Okay, yeah! Music is awesome! Hey everyone, King Gizzard here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album, Flying Microtonal Banana. King Gizzard is an Australian rock band fresh off one of the best albums Fresh off one of the best albums in their discography, Nonagon Infinity. Just dropped last year, a blood-pumping mix of garage and punk and psych rock that at the very end of the album seamlessly loops back into itself, creating a Nonagon Infinity. And from track to track, the album is pretty seamless as well. Now, for a while now, King Gizzard has been one of those bands that goes into an album with a concept, a challenge, an idea, like on Quarters, or their all-acoustic album, Paper Mache Dream Balloon. Now, apparently Flying Microtonal Banana is going to be one of 4 or 5 albums the band releases this year. And the concept or the going experiment on this album is that the band are working with microtonal instruments, microtonal tuning on this album, exploring the pitches that you don't often hear, hiding between the tones and semitones in the chromatic scale, which in terms of musical style and structure might not be that big a deal on a King Gizzard album, because there are a lot of elements of King Gizzard's sound I imagine could stay roughly the same while embarking on this musical experiment. But I did go into this album interested to hear if this experiment pushed the band in any new and refreshing directions with their music, because I wasn't necessarily getting that hint from the lead single to this album, Rattlesnake, a track that I really like, but for the most part this song dishes out a lot of the very tense, groovy, jammy, punky psych rock that was so great about King Gizzard's last album. But the melodies sort of follow that microtonal sound and are really jerky and sour and odd. But thankfully the risks that the band takes on this album don't just stop there. The band starts pushing themselves pretty far outside of their comfort zone on tracks like Melting, a track whose very spicy keyboards and rhythm section take on kind of a Latin flavor. And it's pretty awesome that the band is able to stick to this musical experiment, stick to this microtonal experiment while transporting the band's sound, transporting the band's music to an entirely different continent. And when the band isn't doing this, there are other tracks on the album where it seems like they're toying with Middle Eastern melodies, like on tracks such as Billabong Valley. Maybe not as satisfying as some of the longer tracks on the album, but I do like the change of pace the song provides. The vocals are a lot clearer and straightforward, making the lyrics very readable, and the lyrics actually tell a tale of a guy named Mad Dog Morgan, who was an Australian folk hero and bushranger, outlaw type. Gives the track a really gritty vibe, and again, I love the desert melodies that the band complements this story with. But again, these lyrics are kind of the exception to the rule on this album. Most of the time, the vocals on this record take on this very dreamy, droney tone, which was present on King Gizzard's last album. I'm not all that crazy about it, but I think it pairs well with the really tense, restless jams that the band embarks on this record, because it sort of creates this interesting juxtaposition where the songs are simultaneously sleepy, but also just really, really amped, because the drums are so crisp, the guitars are so driving. Case in point, the song Sleep Drifter, which features these cycling, hypnotic guitar leads, really alluring. I kind of get the same vibe off of the song as well, except the intro to that track is way more quirky. I think the beat is much more danceable too. The band throws in a few bombastic tracks to kind of break up the track listing as well, like Open Water, probably the craziest jam on the entire record. I love the driving tremolo pick guitar leads on this thing. They sort of create this wall of sound, this drone hanging in the background over just the loudest drums on the entire album that bookend each passage of the track with these really dramatic drum fills. Also, this is one of a few times on the album where the band intensifies the performance, intensifies their sound with these really loud, just wee reed instruments that are just wild as fuck. This also creates a highlight on the song Doom City too. The really trippy closing track, which is very chill, very laid back, is decent too. I will say the one downside of the album is that the second half, I think, starts revealing a very clear and plain formula that the band is approaching these songs with this microtonal experiment. You do have a lot of moments on the record where the band's instrumentation in the background just kind of jams and hangs out in one single key while all of this melodic microtonal mayhem mayhem happens on top of the rhythm section. The band does a somewhat decent job of writing choruses or alternative passages, like on tracks such as Doom City, that at least break that up a little bit, but it's still pretty clear that I think they could have taken this microtonal experiment a little further as far as the rhythm instrumentation, the chord progressions on the album. Still though, I think King Gizzard with this record is continuing the creative streak that they've been on for a while now, because this is something that could have been so indulgent and one-dimensional of a record, but instead, whether you're aware of what microtonal tuning or microtonal music is, this is a really fresh, fun, enjoyable, very peppy, very exciting, and intense psych garage experience. Hopefully the next album that they drop later this year provides another experiment, another concept, another idea, because I do have the sneaking suspicion that they really drove this concept to its limits, or at least the limits that the band would push it to. I'm not sure if dipping down again into this well will provide another great record, not unless the band started to really revamp how they structure and compose their songs. But I guess we'll see, since I'm guessing a good deal of the material on these 3 or 4 albums that are forthcoming hasn't even been finished yet. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like. If you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment if you're angry. Other videos and links next to my head. Subscribe to the channel and, you know, official website and all that. You're the best. Forever.